Hopefully that's decently bright enough.
It'll have to do.
There
we
once,
go.
Yeah, once
now
I'm
that
blocking
looks
the
fine.
backlight.
That looks fine. All right.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll start here. So I'm going to go back and put on our names. Yay! All right.
Hey. Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Cherie.
And we are online Technomadia. We've been traveling full time for over 12 years now, right?
Something
or about
like that.
Something. A long time.
You 12 years, me not quite. But
Yes.
whatever, that's a different video. But the subject of tonight's video is introversion and homebodiedness, and why RVing and cruising are great travel styles for introverts and homebodies.
So, you want to come out of the closet then and confess?
I don't think it's any surprise to most joining in, especially our long-term viewers. You know, we talk about it a lot, but Chris and I both identify as introverts.
She is about as extreme on the Myers-Briggs EI scale as you can go, which actually a lot of people would catch a lot of people by surprise. And I'm more of an ambivert, and but we can both go into extreme introversion land. So.
And we're also homebodies.
Yes, and we're both big-time homebodies.
I have been working at home since I was a teenager, and I love it. I love being at home. I love not having to interface with the world if I don't want to.
Yes, just via the control of a little text box.
That works well for me.
Yes, that's how we met, that little text box. So I'm pretty fond of it.
You, however, are probably a little less homebodied than me, but I think you've become more homebodied since we've been on the road.
No, definitely. And well, I mean, actually, no, I did always love my homebodiedness and stuff, but it's gotten to a much more of an extreme in the last 10 years.
So, but there's a lot of misconceptions about what an introvert is. And a lot of people are usually surprised to learn that we both identify, well, me especially, so strongly as an introvert, and that you do, that you kind of sway the line. They say, well, you're on YouTube. How can you be an introvert if you're on YouTube?
That's the whole point. There's no mingling and chit-chat here. The chit-chat's over in the little chat box.
No, I like text chat, actually.
Right.
And so, first of all, the misconceptions about introversion is it does not necessarily mean you are shy. Now, as a kid, I was shy. I learned to overcome that. I challenged myself to not let my introversion come off as shyness. So I practiced. I built my muscles up so I could interface with people without being the awkward, shy child that I was as a youngster.
And now nobody would ever know.
No, real introverts know. Introverts know each other.
Introverts record, right? Yes, that's true.
And I learned ways to get around it, so that I could be in very social situations and extend the amount of time that I can be social. Also, being an introvert does not necessarily mean that you don't like people, or that you're antisocial, or that you're necessarily awkward. Now, it can mean those things, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Right. So what is an introvert?
Okay, so let's see.
You have to read the notes, or you want me to just continue?
She is the introversion expert. One of the main defining factors of introverts versus extroverts is how do you recharge your personal energy. And so introverts recharge in kind of the enclosed, the safe bubble, at home, often alone, whereas extroverts can often recharge in a crowd. So crowd energy energizes them, whereas crowd energy will have an introvert, his batteries draining by the end of it. By the end of a night in a crowd, how do you feel?
Completely drained. Just put me in a corner and lock me up.
Right. You might be the star of the show with the crowd. You're, particularly if you're presenting or doing some sort of event, but that is energy going out, not energy coming in, and that's one of the key traits of an introvert there.
Introverts, some other things that you might find is you prefer being in smaller group gatherings where you can actually interact with more people deeper than a large group setting. The word mingle is a scary word for introverts. Yes. We don't like small talk and chit chat. We prefer those deeper connections that we can get with people.
Or even if it's a larger event, an event that has a purpose, and like here we're having an activity as opposed to mingle time, is a great way to have that all work for an introvert.
Right. But it does come as a surprise to a lot of people that some of the people that you follow online are very strongly identified as introverts. Introverts tend to be very great writers. They tend to be great presenters. They think a lot. They go through the process, and they get their words out in writing and in presentations. So they're natural venues for an introvert to have a voice, which is in a place in which it may not necessarily be in person.
And another thing is, going to the RV side of things is introverts like to have their space around them. And people are surprised, like, well, you want to jump ahead to that? But it's
We are also different personality types on the P&J scale, if you follow Myers-Briggs. Obviously, I have notes. He has his own thing in his head.
Go with the flow.
Okay, all right. Anyway, I think we have pretty much wrapped up.
Right. We've already done this. See, we covered everything on the notes.
Okay, but there's one more.
Okay, I versus E is a scale. We kind of covered that because we're in different parts on that scale.
Right, and it's not a binary thing. It's like you're not left-handed or right-handed.
Right.
You're not introverted or extroverted necessarily. It is on a continuum.
And it can change over time.
And it can change over the day. You may, when you're more drained, more stressed, you may rely more on being introverted and need more of that recharge time.
And it actually could go the other way. If you're a natural extrovert, you might be in introversion when you're trying to work and think and process, but at the end of the day, you're like, I need people, I need to soak things up, I need to recharge that way. So everybody's kind of might have their process for the day of how they shift.
And if you're in your comfort zone, like you're going to a conference about a topic that is really near and dear to your heart, you might be more extroverted in those sorts of situations because that extra confidence gets you over that hump. So it's not a always introvert, always extrovert. Even though I identify as a strong introvert, there are times I actually am quite extroverted and crave social time.
And there's nothing right or wrong about either side. It's just actually the best thing about understanding introversions and extroversions is to learn how to make yourself more comfortable and how to make other people more comfortable and capable to understand what you actually need.
And then homebodiedness, which I think a lot of introverts might be homebodies as well, but it can also be a very separate trait. And that's just wanting to be in your own space. And I have very much always identified as homebodiedness. I consider my home to kind of be my recharging cradle. So I need recharge time more on my own or in my bubble. And my bubble is identified as my home. And I definitely know that when I am away from my home, I feel my charger, my batteries going down.
And that is, I think, where RVing and cruising and stuff is. Bringing your house with you is like traveling with your battery charger. You have your charger with you all the time, always close at hand. It's not very far away. We actually don't like to, when we're traveling, to even get too many hours away from our RV.
Like we'll plan our outings on like, okay, I can do 3 hours away. Okay, no, we're not doing that big tour. I just can't be away from home that long.
Sometimes.
Some days it is like that, especially if we're got a lot going on or.
Yes.
For sure. But what I found with now, I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody. So are you.
Yep.
I'm also got wanderlust, and I love adventure, and I love exploring, and I love being in new places. And these things might seem that they could be at odds with each other, but that's where I think RVing and cruising really can come together to create a perfect environment for an introvert to explore the world.
Yes, you're carrying your bubble with you. It's like a space capsule, and it works wonderfully.
So it allows me to get out there and do things, and we're out exploring new things all the time, meeting new people all the time, but I always know my home, my recharge bubble is close by, and that I'm going to be there soon, and that allows me to be out in the world more. And I've actually been able to increase the amount of time that I can be away from home or that I can be in social situations since I've hit the road.
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's actually literally kind of brought you out of the shell of the house you had where you kind of build up your social energy to just weekends and stuff like that. And you had a lot of, sometimes you wouldn't leave the house, and now your house is going places and getting a lot more adventure.
Absolutely. So yeah, if we're going into a social situation, like we're here in Fort Pierce for a boating meetup
with MTOA rendezvous,
and it's very similar to an RV rally that we go, or a convergence, which we go to often as well in our RVing world. Is we can go out, attend the seminars, go to the social meetups, and we just make frequent trips back to the house to get our recharge time.
No, yeah. Sometimes all it really takes is 5-10 minutes. Go back, catch your breath, and have some hydration and stuff like that.
Hydration is very important too.
Hydration is no matter whether introverted or extroverted, hydration is very important.
So it allows us to float between our introverted homebodied nature and being social, and be on and be our best selves when we're out there. And it's not putting on a mask or putting on a face when we're out there. We really do love connecting with people.
Yeah, that's actually part of what makes it possible, is to gather up that energy and then be able to go out and really be on and really be able to go deep and connect and push through the chit chat because you're fully energized.
Absolutely, and that is a trick that introverts have to learn, is get past talking about the weather and get to talking about, well, actually, now that we're boating, weather is a big, huge topic, actually.
Weather is no longer casual chit chat when you live on a boat.
It is essential. So it's actually been an interesting twist with having cruising in our life now.
Everybody's talking about the weather,
and it's super important. But yeah, so we do talk about weather all the time. 10 groups while at home, obviously. So, but RVing and boating do have some challenges for us introverts because we're always in new social situations.
That means you're always having that same first conversation over and over and over, and it gets hard to push past that every single time because you don't necessarily have the time, and that can be very draining. Is just being surrounded by constantly new people means you never really get that chance to get past.
Usually.
Usually. Yeah. No, it is a challenge. It is a challenge. It can be overcome, of course.
But yeah, it is a lot of the same chit chat conversations, which us introverts don't thrive on. So you do have to get used to that. You just push through it, get to know people. By our second interaction with somebody, if we feel like they might be someone we want to get to know, we are the ones sometimes that will ask a different question than how's the weather. No,
we love second meetups with people. Having that set of context is like you're past that first hump of like how long have you been doing this or what are your so this is like let's go somewhere interesting and new, and that's always fun.
And you are going to be mingling a lot more on the road. You're walking into a new restaurant, a brewery or anything like that. You're really never on your home turf.
Well, every time you move your house, it's an instant. Everybody wherever you've moved to, whether in an RV park, campground, a marina, is like all your neighbors want to say hi and meet you, and you've got kind of that instant kind of mingle from all sides in a sense. And if you're only there for a day or two, that can be a little draining. If you're there for a week, then this is a great chance to get to know your neighbors and to get to have those second conversations.
Sometimes. Yeah, that's one reason we've slowed down our pace of travel is so that we can get to those second conversations and not people. Have everything be chit chat. It is, however, harder to build those deeper relationships that nourish us introverts. Those friendships that endure. We do have them. I'm Peter and John. You're here. Joe's here. We just said until next time to Nina and Paul. We have made some amazing friendships on the road. But it takes those multiple meetups. It takes saying, hey, you, I see you. Let's do something more than just having dinner. Let's go rent a condo together in downtown Vancouver.
That's also a great plan.
So in creating those opportunities to get to know people and make that space and really expressing your intention to someone else that you want to get to know them. And sometimes you have to be willing to make that be forward. And that's not always a comfortable space for an introvert to be in. So it's all about flexing those muscles and getting past it.
Right. And so knowing that sometimes even if you're not feeling in that mood to be social, you sometimes as you're a traveler, you've just arrived someplace, you have to make that initial effort to make that first impression, first contact, even if you're at the end of the day and drained, just so that you have a good foundation for the next day. So sometimes that is extra effort you have to put in.
Yep. But your fellow travelers are usually in the same predicament, so they're usually going to be very amenable if they're also wanting to form friendships on the road.
As a secret, a lot of them are also probably introverts and completely understand.
Absolutely. It's sometimes connecting with locals who might not know what to do with a nomad passing through town. So, are you a tourist? Are you looking to move here? Wait a minute, you're both? So sometimes the locals don't quite know what to do with us, travelers anyway. But you will experience feast and famine, as hopefully not in food, but in your social life. You will go through periods of intense social time where it seems like another person wants to meet up. Okay, I've had 20 today. Can I do another? To wait a minute, it's been 4 weeks since I've seen another person or had an interaction with somebody else.
And so that is a potential downside of this lifestyle, but it's also an upside because you can control that. You have a lot of control over the kind of environments you put yourself into. And so sometimes we'll intentionally head out deep into the boonies to recharge, or on a boat we can go out and anchor, and we're not really going to get it becomes a great introvert recharge bubble floating at anchor, because you literally have a moat around you. And
or in the RV, we'll seek out boondocking spots,
right.
or we'll try to find campgrounds that are out of the way, that are not full. Because we have the extra predicament is because we've chosen to share our lives online, is we're also
we get recognized.
We get recognized, and that's part of why we share, is because we want to be recognized.
And yeah, there are other times where like we feel like people. Let's go soak some stuff up, and we will intentionally go someplace where we'll be surrounded, like going to a rendezvous like this, or the RV Entrepreneur Summit, or someplace like that, where we're intentionally diving into the deep end of the pool.
So just some other tips that we've learned over the years is when you're picking your RV or boat, consider your recharge space that you need. One thing that we found is when we had super small RVs, and we love the minimalist lifestyle, we really do. And we had a 16-foot travel trailer, then a 17-foot.
Tiny.
What we found is when we needed to be in campgrounds and closed-in spaces for other reasons, visiting family, friends, or work opportunities, is we could no longer just sit outside and have that part of our living space and feel like we're in our recharge bubble.
Right, because it does invite people, for better or for worse, it invites people walking by to say hello, to come up and ask questions, and to come, and that is great. I mean, that's just being friendly. And when we're out for a walk, we will do that. We will say hi to people who are out. But when this was a small RV, we considered being outside just part of our living room, because we had so little space inside. And it's like somebody walking into your living room saying, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "I'm watching TV, or I'm working, or I'm reading," and that was a little awkward.
That's not the case always in campgrounds.
Yes.
Is the outdoor space is not necessarily considered your private space.
Right. So planning when you're picking your RV or your boat or anything like that is planning around that. It's like, you have to have enough inside space if you need that as your recharge space.
So that's one reason we went to a larger RV. We ended up with a 35-foot bus conversion. Because we wanted to be able to stay places longer, and we wanted to have a comfortable place to be at if we were in a situation where we really couldn't be outside and feel at home. Right. And that's one reason we got comfortable with going with a larger boat, is we wanted a floating condo to go to cool city centers, and that's going to be a lot of sensory input going to urban areas. We knew that we were going to need more of a recharge house.
It's awesome because we have a house that's in walking distance of all of that stuff.
It's awesome. Using social media when you do want to meet people. Sometimes if you have some pre-context of someone beforehand, it's a lot easier to go deeper with them when you meet in person. So that's one reason we expend so much energy online. Because
you get to know people in advance. They get to know you in advance, and kind of clears away a lot of the surface level stuff. And I don't know, it's one of our favorite ways to meet people.
So what that means is, if you're watching us here on YouTube and you feel like we might be your type of people, we don't know you yet. Yes. Remember that. We can't see through this lens and see you too. Please reach out if you see us in your area. We probably will click and we'll want to meet you.
Yes.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Introduce, get to know us first. Interact first online. Interact first online with the people you want to meet, because then when you meet in person, there's context and there's more chance to have more than just a little quick hello.
Yep. One of my tricks in attending big social events is I'll reach out to the organizers and see how I can volunteer and help out at the event. I find if I have a role in a social gathering or a big meetup or rally or something like that, I do a lot better, because if I can focus on the role and helping people, then it's not necessarily them interacting with me, it's them interacting with someone as part of helping them. And so that's one reason that we'll try to present, we'll volunteer, we'll help out in other ways around the event. So like here at the MTOA, we volunteered on the facilities committee.
Got to lift chairs and tables. But
we're helping out, and that gave us a role and a way to interact with people, and gave us some first friendships already coming into the rally. So that really helped out.
So when your house is nearby, retreat and use it. If you need to recharge while you're an introvert and get feeling drained, is just go pop, just like taking your phone, just pop it on the charger for 5 minutes, and it's amazing how refreshing.
Or a
it can
day
be.
or two
a
if
day.
you need to. I mean, some of these convergences now last weeks. And take the time you need. You'll be surprised to learn that many more of your neighbors are introverts as well.
Yeah.
And when you see them out interacting in person, they may come off as extroverted, but remember, you're seeing them at their recharged self.
Right, and you kind of get it. You can have this kind of pressure. It's like all these other people are constantly doing everything, and then once you actually check in with somebody else, you're like, oh, they skipped 3 of the events. I was just assuming they were at everything, and I was the only one that was exhausted and recharging and hiding in my shell.
So never feel bad about needing that recharge time.
Right.
And you will be a better participant and a better community member if you are recharged going into it. So take that time that you need. It's good for everybody. One of our tricks also is when we're going into an event, like we were gearing up to go to this MTOA event that we're here, as well as the RV Entrepreneur Summit, is we intentionally padded in pre and post alone time. So we specifically picked adventures, campgrounds or stays where we would hopefully be on our own. We didn't pre-announce them. We didn't invite others along.
And that works great. And a related tip is get to events early so you're there as part of the ramp up as opposed to diving in when the water is already this deep. That is a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of...
Yep, I love to get there. If there's that's one reason we'll volunteer. If we say, hey, can we help us set up in advance?
Yes.
We are happy to come in 2 or 3 days in advance and help us set up. I do a lot better if I'm ramping up with the energy of an event and not just coming in to a fire hose. And also, in smaller social situations, it's very tempting. You see people hosting happy hours and meetups and this and that at their homes or their porches. I am the type of person, I have to be in a very recharged state to be able to host more than just close friends in my home without it being draining.
And so one of the mistakes we've learned from is not to host things, not to block the charger. You don't want to have an event going on in your living room or an event going on your front patio, and if you hit that point of I need to go home and recharge, well, you can't unless you kick everybody out. And if you have to, do it, but I mean that's really awkward. So for those kind of things, let the extroverts host,
and you go to them,
right?
And bring great snacks.
Yes, and bring great snacks.
And then host when you're feeling
right.
really fully recharged and be able to do it. So I think that's all we really had planned for our little presentation here. And let's see, we had a couple. We're going to switch to the Q&A.
Bring up there would be the full screen version of it there. Zing. Or did it disappear?
There we go.
Okay.
So our patrons, they get to submit some questions in advance. So we'll address those first. But if you have questions for us, we will be more than happy to address them for a little bit. At 8 o'clock, we are switching over to our Patron interactive Hangout, and it is a 2-way video or 30-way video.
30-way video.
So our patrons will be joining us for that. And, of course, you're welcome to join us, too, if you want to join us on Patreon.
And we'll be having a wine together, I believe.
Yep. So feel free to queue up any questions you have. We'll address these patron ones that were submitted in advance. Oh, knock the microphone over.
I'm going to make this just small, and let's see. Boom. And patron there.
Ooh, that's fancy. Okay. All right. So one of the questions that was submitted in advance was, are there any codes for signaling you're not up for being social in a campground? So we talked about how your front yard or your camp space may not be presumed to be part of your personal space in a campground.
Yeah. So I think some of the tricks are like wearing one of those scary masks, or maybe a hockey mask and holding a big knife, but that probably wouldn't go over so well, I guess. What are the tricks to let people know?
I have heard that some people consider if you have your camp chairs like pointed away from the road, that's considered in your backs to the road. I mean, that's just giving off antisocial vibes right there. So people tend not to approach you if you're not making eye contact.
Right.
But it can be difficult. Some people will set up like a screen room or something like that so that they're creating a little bit of divider space. But it can be difficult in a campground or situation.
Right.
If you're sitting outside, people are going to say hi,
and that's a great thing. And I guess part of it is getting practice with with saying hi and then saying, hey, I'm in the middle of something, I'm recharging, I need to work, I need to think, I need, in a non-rude way, just saying, hey, hi, and I got to get back to what I was doing, even if it looked like I was just staring at a tree.
Yeah, or we usually have our iPad or iPhone, something like that. So sorry, I'm actually in the middle of work. It may not look like I'm working, but I'm working. But
headphones, actually.
Headphones could work.
Yeah. Having headphones that's kind of the universal sign of I'm inside a bubble. That works for a lot of people. And actually, I know people who wear headphones even if they're not listening to anything, just to give that kind of introversion bubble while they're out in the world.
Another question that was submitted was, why do introverts share so much online if they don't want to be approached? And I know that we've gotten this question on the channel when we've talked about people approaching us in campgrounds and things like that. It's like, well, if you don't want people to approach you, then why do you share online?
Well, we do want people to approach us. We just partly we want to control that.
Well, we try to get the message out that the way we most like to be approached is if we're already out and about. Don't come and knock on our door.
Yes.
That's the division we try to make. Is if we're at home, we're usually working, we're doing
recharging.
we're doing a broadcast like this, or we're in the middle of client calls, or in the middle of writing articles and things like that. We don't want the distractions.
Yeah, I think introverts
or we're naked.
Introverts a lot of times don't like to change context. If they need to be ready to go out and be interactive, and so I think sharing online is a way to kind of set some of that context and kind of try to have those interactions happen more under their control.
Well, and also one reason that I like to share is I like helping people.
Absolutely.
I like providing resources and experiences that might help someone else pursue their dreams. So this is a way that I can share with a lot of people without it draining me.
Yes. Yes, that's it. Because we're interacting with, like, over the course of this video, it'll be thousands of people, and imagine mingling with thousands of people.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, we do go to conferences and rallies and things like that, and we present at them, but we can't do that many in a year.
And we love meeting people one-on-one at them, but we could, even at a big event, we could still only have a good conversation with just, a dozen or 2 dozen people tops. So this is a great way to, like, mingle with a lot of people easier.
Right. And hopefully putting out the word that, hey, if we're coming your way and you think we're people that we could have some nice conversations with, let's meet up. Let's go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Let's go out for a hike together. Show us something cool about your city. So that is a reason why we put the energy out there. We just ask, please don't come unannounced and knock on our door. That's our ask.
Yeah. And I think actually that's just general good common courtesy for a lot of people too. But yes.
But based on the number of people who have just shown up without approaching us in advance and just knocking on our door, I don't think it's as general as we would hope.
I know.
But
another question here? Yeah,
we do have some other questions. We have some people sharing some fun ideas about ways to indicate that you aren't social. One says crime scene tape. That will probably do it.
I think that would draw a lot of people. Because people like to stand around the edge of the crime scene and like, what's going on
there? Yeah. 2 long smoke signals, put 3 short, 1 equals I'm armed and dangerous.
Okay.
They'll probably keep people away. Oh, that sun's coming back. Yeah, see? Sun.
Can't avoid it.
Pretty sunset going on over there.
Get the final question and then we can
final
close
question.
this thing.
Oh, yes. One of our very supportive patrons wanted to know, as we're exploring the Intercoastal Waterway this summer, is how can they continue to send us wine?
That's a good question.
It really is. And they actually did ask that one. Obviously, if we're along your way and you would like to get together and share a bottle of wine with us, we would love that. So please reach out and let's arrange that meetup. But if we're not going to be along your way or meeting up isn't possible and you would like to send us virtual wine.
Yeah, we have virtual wine, virtual cat treats.
We do have a leave a tip button on every page of technomadia.com, which is the blog site, or come join us over on Patreon. That is kind of our closer knit community where we get more of an opportunity to get to know you. And, you're tossing us $1 a month. That's like a bottle of wine a year.
And we'll get to drink it together in interactive video chat. So, hey, that'll be fun. Hey, let's go pop into the chat room then. What's going on over here?
All right. I don't see any questions. Did we really cover everything about introversion? Or do we have just so many introverts online watching that no one wants to ask questions? But by the way, questions can be, they don't have to be about the topic this evening. They can be about anything that might be lingering about nomadic lifestyles.
Or about what we're up to.
Traveling with cats.
And so, yeah, well, I guess the produced videos are still a little bit behind. We're in Fort Pierce now. We'll be here for a little bit longer.
Yes, we are actually undertaking a couple of remodeling projects and upgrade projects.
That way and give a little sneak preview.
You could give a little sneak preview. You might notice some things missing and some.
So those who've seen our living room might notice that the living room wall is missing, and there's a big black thing there. And yeah, we're doing some major engineering and remodeling and some cool upgrades. That's one of them. There's several others happening.
Yes, so we're tackling some projects here. Thankfully, we put out the call that we were looking for a carpenter in the Fort Pierce area, and one of our viewers happened to be working with a carpenter in the Fort Pierce area that he highly recommended. So we were able to communicate in advance and arrange some time to meet up. Because one thing we found with being a cruiser is cruisers are known for not being on schedule, which is a good thing, because we don't like schedules anyway. So most people who do provide services to cruisers for doing major renovation work won't talk to you until you're actually there.
And then they tell you, okay, I'm about 3 to 5 weeks out before I can start.
It's like, but I'm only in town for a month.
So it's actually it's been very challenging to find people to work on the bigger projects. Another one we're tackling right now is a bit more unfortunate. We've got a generator that has been flaky, and in the process of troubleshooting it, it's now basically disassembled, and the guy's telling us it might not be worth the effort to reassemble.
Or he's not sure that we've actually found, there's a lot of little things that might be causing our frequent brownouts with it, but...
So in the next 24 hours, we need to decide whether to invest in a potential black hole of an old generator or to invest in a new generator.
That will be better power consumption, quieter, and something we can rely on,
but a lot more expensive. So we've got to weigh the trade-offs and potentially a longer project to swap. So yeah, we've got generator issues, power issues.
We've had generator issues since before the hurricane. So it's just like, okay, we did a week of anchoring out on the way up here, and the generator issues were annoying. We did a lot of troubleshooting, we had a lot of fixes, workarounds, and we just couldn't isolate it. And we've consulted with a lot of experts in the last week or two, and we'll be making that decision here the next 24 hours.
Yes, what to do with the generator. If anybody has any marine generator expertise or advice or brand recommendations, poke me. Hey, I'm in a absorption phase trying to make final decisions right now. So, hey.
So you're a lead acid battery in absorption phase?
Yeah, sure. I'm
and of course, we still want to do lithium and solar, and that project has been punted from this trip. It just too much
remodeling happening otherwise.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Paradigm TV wants to know, how much harder do you think traveling alone is? So you actually started off solo. You can speak to that.
I did start off solo, and it was interesting. There's things that absolutely were magical about traveling solo, and it's something that I haven't had a chance to experience much of in the last since I met Sheree. But traveling solo as an introvert, you are in that total. You've got the bubble. I mean, you're there, but then you kind of hit, particularly as an ambivert, where it's like I'm swinging more to my extrovert side. I'm like, I've gone 4 days without talking to another person other than online. I'm starting to get twitchy, and I'm like, just.
Is that why you're with me? It's because you got twitchy?
I got tired of talking. I needed to talk to a real person. So you just learn to, like, okay, I'm going to go out and have an interesting adventure, and go out and meet people, and you see what. I guess one of the nice things about traveling alone is when you decide to go dive into something, you can really be steered by serendipity of, like, which way you go depends on who you meet and what interactions happen, and it could lead to a day of random strange encounters with cool people, or it might be a whole other day where you never talk to somebody. But it's interesting and it's different. It's very, very different than traveling as a couple or as a group.
Laura would like a brief description of Kiki's toilet room in our bus. And actually, if you go to the blog and just type in litter box, you'll find her article on it describing her litter box room. But basically, we took a cabinet where the old style RV hot water heater was, and put a cat door in it, and just stuck the litter box in there. So you kind of look around your RV.
And we put in a chimney up to the roof and decorated. We let her decorate with posters and stuff. So it is her little private room. We actually put a light in for her too.
That
Pretty
sometimes
fancy.
works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, she has a full article on it if you want to go look at that.
She wrote it.
Yes, because our cat types.
Yes, and she's craving a similar modification to the boat, but we haven't gotten to that one yet.
Let's see. Jonathan wants to know, I can't imagine the mob in Quartzsite. How do you deal with the mob? So it is definitely a balancing act when we go to Quartzsite or any like a escapees rally, RV Entrepreneur Summit, where we're going to a place where there's going to be a high concentration of like minds. In my ideal world, once a week we'd meet 2 or 3 people a week and then have time to ourselves, and we'd spread it out and be nice and even and perfect. But that's not how it works. You do have that feast or famine.
Yeah, but the nice thing about again is you have your house with you. So in a place like a mob like Quartzsite, particularly because there's so much else going on, is like you don't feel like you have to constantly do everything and constantly entertain other people, and you could retreat to your house sometimes for an entire day or 2.
But it can be hard for us because especially those of who
when
are
you're
on
organizing
YouTube,
or
if you're organizing or you have a following, is a lot of people are coming to these events and they have a checklist of the bloggers and YouTubers that they want to meet.
And literally, we have met somebody who had a checklist
they
of
show
the
up.
bloggers they
Hi,
wanted to
you're
meet.
Technomadia. Hi, I want to meet you. Like,
I've got a list of 5 bloggers I hope to run into here. I'm like, you really made a list? I'm like, yeah, right here. Oh my god.
But the thing the advantage of those big events is you get to meet a lot of people at once. And for us, we tend to meet a lot of people at them. But the downside is we don't get a chance to actually get to know people.
Right.
So for a lot of people, it does feel like we're just a checklist item for people, whereas I really crave those deeper relationships.
And also for us, it's everybody becomes a blur. Even if it's like, wow, that person seemed really cool, but like I'm on to the next person just because there's no chance to have that follow up. And then because there's so many people, by the end of the event, it's like, I remember meeting 3 really cool people I wanted to follow up on, and I've got a stack of cards. I don't know which one it was.
Or 6 months later, we get an email. So I met you out at the Quartzsite. Like, yeah, I was the one who said I read your blog. That one. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm
So we do try to remember something unique, plant that cue card in our head and then tell people, it's like, hey,
drop us a follow-up email, remind us who you were and what we talked about.
Tell us about, like we met a guy at the RV Entrepreneur Summit who is really into Legos. And I remember that about him. And I said, when you contact us,
just say Lego guy.
Say the Lego guy. And I will remember. Just give me that cue. That's that's the index key I'm putting in my head. So I try to do that. I try to tell people, remind me of that when you contact us. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Did you change your wardrobe style on the boat to look like a boater?
Do I look like a boater? I don't think we've really changed our wardrobe style too much. I have gotten more long sleeve shirts to avoid sun exposure. Yeah.
Wearing less socks. Not that I wear socks a ton anyway, so that's about it.
Yeah, I have been, just mainly more long sleeve breathable shirts, so I don't have to wear as much sunscreen because I do find the sun exposure is a lot more extreme on the boat than it is in the RV, and that's been the main thing.
It's really hard to park the boat in the shade.
Yes, finding shade on the boat is really hard. Do you ever need to have individual alone time as well from each other?
That is a very good question, and I think the way we kind of do that is we go into our own little bubbles, usually with our own screens in front of us or something. Or now in the boat, our house is big enough that we'll be at different rooms. But in general, we mesh so well that we don't need a lot of separate time.
And we can be in our own space mentally, because we both are very computer oriented and we both are very online oriented. So we can be sitting here on the couch together and be in our own space. Right. But we are finding ways. I mean, we've been together pretty much nonstop 24/7 for 12 years in a small space with very little time apart.
Yes.
And we choose. I mean, we'll go out. It's like, hey, I could send him to go do an errand. But no, we both want to go. We both want to get out of the house today.
Yeah. But that is sometimes the recharge time, because I will recharge more going out to do an errand, and Shreya can recharge a lot having some home alone time.
We did just get a stand-up paddleboard,
and we only got one so far.
One so far, because we're testing it out and trying to figure out how we're going to store them on the boat, because they're going to be used a lot more if they're inflated and accessible. But it's been great those last couple of weeks where one of us will go out paddling, and we both have iPhones with Apple watches
with
cellular, so that they're waterproof and we can call each other if we need a rescue. So that gives us that sense of security out there and safety to go out alone. And we usually stay within visual sight with binoculars.
Distance, yeah.
But going out for 30 minutes on our own and going out and doing some yoga on the paddleboard has been giving us a little bit of alone space and giving the other one home time on their own. So that's been really nice. That's been new. We haven't really had that option much.
That's it. Yeah. And usually when it comes time to go for a walk, we're both so eager to go for a walk that we hardly ever go for a walk solo.
Let's see.
Okay, what other...
Trying to find if there's any other questions in here. Some great conversations going on in here.
There's a lot of good stuff in the chat room.
Pamela says the beauty of a boat that is not tiny, which ours is not qualified as tiny. If you're hosting something and one of you needs to break away, you can usually go down below and put on some headphones to get away from the hoopla for a bit.
Yeah. And then because the sound doesn't travel super much between the front and back of our boat, so we haven't really had too much hoopla happening on board that we weren't both involved in, but that's definitely something in the future that can
and
happen.
It was when we were like in the boatyard and we had mechanics in here. We had the electronics guys. Is I could go down into the berth and get work done
and recharge and stuff, and I could juggle the mechanics
because you do a lot better with that sort of chaos than I do, and I just have to get away from it. Paradigm TV asked, do you see yourselves putting down roots anywhere?
Define roots. We got roots in this boat and roots in our bus, and they move. So we're kind of like potted plants. We have roots in a pot, and then that moves around.
We've got roots in cities where we have family and friends, so places where we return to often. But at this point, I don't think either of us has much inclination at all to settle down in one location. We
were talking about settling down here in Fort Myers for an extra few weeks.
It's always defined in weeks.
In weeks, exactly.
If anything, if there is something that would call us to take us off the road, other than caretaking a family member or our own health needs, and those would be very much seen as temporary, get through the situation sort of things. It would be to establish ourselves in a community with continual people. But that right now the call to continue being nomadic outweighs that.
And the continual people, the people I'd most want to settle down with are nomads themselves. So it's maybe we'll have to have like a commune for old nomads someplace someday.
Yep. Potted plants, I love it.
Yeah, we have roots. The roots just move.
Yes. Exactly. Why put down roots when you enjoy what you're doing? And that's absolutely correct. Those are the only three scenarios right now I can even imagine us settling down for. So, and right now we're experimenting with having 2 nomadic homes and moving between the 2, and that's our new challenge is, moving back and forth between our homes, which is great. So.
Okay.
Dave says we're going to be full-time eventually, but we're unclear on the end game. Retiring at home, your thoughts? We're in our mid-40s. Retirement home isn't even on our radar at this point.
But if you're thinking about that, look into the escapees and care. It's kind of assisted living in your RV that the escapees put in place for people who just want to keep RVing all the way. And
and it is assisted living. There's also a lot of the co-ops in the escapees program and other co-ops out there where you can become a leaseholder and you kind of settle down, or you have a home base. Yeah. We're actually going to be buying a leaseholder spot in one of the co-ops parks of the escapees soon. And that'll be the home base of where the bus is. It'll be a base camp, but eventually it might be somewhere that we spend more time at.
Yeah. And actually, we have seen quite a few full-time RVers older generations transition from RVing most of the year to having that home base where they are most of the year, and then they just do 1 or 2 month-long RV trips. And just as their interests and health and mobility changes, they just kind of change their focus and energy.
Peter and John want to know, will we be buying a plane to complete the nomadic trifecta? I think we'll let Peter buy the plane and take us all around.
No, I've had my eyes on buying a plane. It's just hard. Planes are even more expensive to own than boats. So be tricky. But yeah, having a flying boat, or I'm really down for the Zeppelin. I mean, I'm waiting till I can get a nice affordable Zeppelin, maybe a 2 or 3 bedroom.
2 or 3 bedroom Zeppelin.
Yeah, great panoramic windows. Yes,
yeah.
I'm waiting.
Spaceship would be my Technomad trifecta. All right.
Spaceship, I'm down.
Sandy wants to
even
know,
more expensive to own.
Sandy wants to see Sandy wants to know if we had any seasickness when the waters are rough.
Almost inside the marina.
So far in our traveling in the boat, we have not encountered too many rough seas. We're doing mostly intercoastal. We did a little bit offshore in the Gulf, coming down through the Everglades. So thus far, we've been fair weather sailors and have sought protected anchorages or marinas during rough weather, or evacuated the heck out of Dodge when hurricanes come through. However, since being in this marina, we have absolutely no protection from the south. So when a thunderstorm kicks up, we've had 3 to 4 foot waves in this marina.
Inside the marina, yeah, it's been interesting. This has been some of the roughest water we've experienced yet. Has been tied up to the dock here, but we've not felt uncomfortable or sicker at all. I think there's like one day where Kiki was just a little like, really, can you make a stop?
So far, no, I am prone to motion sickness. So it was a concern for me with going boating. It was a concern for me going in a bus. It's a concern for me going in a car. So far, I've been able to overcome it, and I've found that as long as I feel I'm safe and I understand the situation of what's going on, that I tend to not experience motion sickness. But that's not to say that I probably will in some days, especially in different sea or water conditions. Crossing the Chesapeake and the Great Lakes can be just like crossing an ocean as far as waves go. So there will probably be times that we're ill, and I have got almost every seasick solution on board, ready to go, from ginger to sea bands to Bonnie to whatever I could bring on board.
I see Pamela says you can't live on a plane, and I'd like to point out that Winnebago actually even made helicopter RVs for a limited run, I think in the late 70s, early 80s. You can look it up, find some pictures. So RV flying campers and stuff like that have sort of existed. And Jimmy Buffett famously had a camper, a flying boat camper set up. So hey, it can be done.
Mario would like to know, can they follow us on Instagram? And yes, we have individual. This is the only place we have individual social media presences, really, is on Instagram. So you can find me, Cherie_Technomadia, Chris_Technomadia, and Kiki_Technomadia. Kiki even posts every so often.
Yep.
Paradigm wants to know, is there enough remote telecommuter work out there to sustain a nomad life? And
a lot of people are doing it.
A lot of people are doing it. Some companies are hiring telecommuters, but a lot of us are making our own jobs, and there's always room for that. So my theory is where there's a will and there's a passion, there's a way. You can make it work.
There's so many people who are finding ways to make a career on the road.
All right. So we're going to call this a broadcast in the evening. Thank you guys so much for joining in. We always enjoy doing these. Thank you to our patrons for helping us pick tonight's topic. And we will be switching over. If you're one of our patrons, at 8:15 is when the patron room will open up. You should have, if you haven't found the link, it is in the patron page. You can get that at patron.com/technomadia.
And the cool thing about that is you'll see us and we'll see you. If you turn your camera on, it's two-way, which I think is really fun because we're starting to recognize faces who show up
and getting to know each other and getting our community to know each other as well. So we've really appreciated our Patreon community, where it's been a smaller closed space where we can share more real time. So thank you guys, and we'll come up with or our patrons will come up with a topic for next month, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Where does this go?
We can stop streaming right here.